Chapter 8 I Have a Pen. It was when I got to class 6 that I started feeling truly mature. I think it had to do with two major changes in my life. First, an ink pen had replaced my pencil. It made a big difference when I felt its presence in my hands, in my pencil box, and in my shirt's pocket. I remember how obsessed I used to be with my ink pen. I loved its nib, and that, to me, was the most beautiful part of the pen. In my free time, it was quite normal for me to keep staring at the nib of my pen and wonder how that thing was so nicely carved at the corners. I would be amazed to observe how that chiseled semi-cylinder of metal ended in such a sharp, pointed tip. However, the most beautiful aspect of the pen for me was to watch how, right through the center of its shiny exterior, a superfine channel of ink flowed and took the shape of letters on paper. It was love at first sight. I would spend about 15 to 20 minutes every night checking the level of ink left in my pen and refilling it with a dropper. At the end of my refilling exercise, I would seal the lid of my Chelpak ink bottle and then wipe the extra ink off the outer surface of the pen, especially the surface of the nib around the thick ink channel. I wanted the nib to be as clean and shiny as possible. If there was ever a leakage, I would rub the pen against my hair. I had learned doing that from my tuition sir. If ever there was a point in time when I felt grown up, this was it. And with my growing up, I also started expecting other grown-up privileges. I remember one day before the pen had made its entry into my life, while I was doing my science homework of fill in the blanks for a lesson called Healthy Breakfast, I had asked my mother, "Why do I have to drink only milk? Why can't I drink tea like you?" "Because you are a kid," came the reply, "and tea is not good for kids. When you grow up, you can start having tea." Busy sharpening my pencil, I thought about what she had said. So, when I will be a grown-up? Mom looked at me and then at the pencil that I had been sharpening. She answered, "The day you will start writing with a pen," and she had smiled. Since that day, I had started associating the use of a pen with the status of being a grown-up. I had been waiting for a long time to get into class 6, because that's when, according to our curriculum, we were supposed to start writing with pens. And when I did get into class 6, I claimed my license to drink tea. The second major milestone of growing up for me was to become the proud owner of a bicycle. Getting the bicycle was not easy. I had long craved for it and had been demanding it for years. Time and again I used to bring up the subject of my would-be bicycle, and time and again I was denied one. "Tu हाले छोटा है, cycle चलाने वास्ते. You are still too young to ride a bicycle," Mom had said one day when I had initiated the topic. "पर देवेश और मनदीप भी छोटे हैं, उन्हें कोल साइकिल है." "But Devesh and Mandeep are young as well. They have bicycles," I argued. "What about Anju, Meenu, Rashmi?" Mom countered. "Mom, they are girls." I tried to bring in the gender difference for my benefit. But my mom was not going to retreat. She threw a few boys' names at me, who she knew did not have a bicycle. I wanted to get back at her. and I even had a very reasonable argument. But for some reason I could not say that to her face, knowing it would not hold. I didn't debate the subject further. I expressed my annoyance by not talking to her that evening. However, in a short while, Mom began to serve food to my brother and me. While Tingu ate his food, I kept staring at it blankly. I was hungry, but on the outside, I was putting up a non-violent act of protest. Mom was still in the kitchen, making a few chapatis for Dad. At first, I was determined not to eat unless Mom agreed to buy me a bicycle. A little later, when I felt hungrier, I resolved that I had started eating as soon as Mom shouted at me for not eating. That was the point to which I would stretch my ego. But nothing of the sort happened. Being in the kitchen, Mom was not even aware that I was not eating, hence she didn't shout. Soon emotion and hunger acted in unison and broke me down, and that's when my eyes turned moist. Gradually, through wet eyelashes, the food in front of me became blurred. Tingu looked at me. I looked back at him. Seeing me in that condition made him somewhat confused. He got off his chair and went to the kitchen. The very thought of my little brother telling my mother about my crying, which would make Mom come running to console and feed me, made me comfortable. But I was wrong. All my little unsympathetic brother did was to return with some more dal for himself. Then he climbed back into his chair with his legs hanging in the air, holding a spoon which he had still not learned to hold properly. He watched me sobbing as if nothing had happened. He was hopeless. I will never share my bicycle with you, I thought to myself while giving him the most disgusting look ever. Even that didn't seem to have any effect on him, and while I was thinking about him, I forgot about crying. Mom called out from the kitchen, asking me if I wanted more chapati. I didn't respond. She called out again. I still didn't respond. Finally, she came to the living room only to see my food untouched. She saw me crying silently. Worried to see me that way, she ran towards me and took my hand. Ki ho gaya beta? What's the matter, son? She asked, worried. I didn't say anything, but wrapped my arms around her, and that's when I gave way to my feelings. I started crying loudly because I could not bear to be angry anymore. My non-violent protest got washed away in a flood of tears. A little later, Mom fed me with her hands. I felt cared for. As she fed me every bite, she explained to me that I had grown up enough and that I should understand our family's financial condition. She offered me some water, and after I had taken a sip, she told me that I should not make demands for everything I wanted. All this while, as she kept talking to me and made me finish my dinner, I kept holding her chunni in my hands, feeling disappointed by her explanations. That night, lying in my bed, I thought of how I had wanted to respond to my mother when she had pointed out the boys in my class who didn't come to school on bicycles. I wanted to tell her that those boys didn't even need a bike. Their dads had scooters. Every day they would be dropped off to school on their scooters. It was embarrassing for me that my father didn't possess one. And from that embarrassment came hate. I hated my father because he was not a doctor or an engineer like my friends' fathers, just like the other boys of my class. I too wanted to stand in between my dad's leg when he would drive a scooter. Like them, I too wanted to press the horn and make the world get out of my way. Like them, I too wanted to let my classmates know that my father had dropped me off to school on his scooter. But I knew my father could not afford one, and so I was only asking for a bicycle. In the afternoon, when school got over, my friends would go back home in those nice box-shaped six-seater school rickshaws. Their dads would be busy at work and therefore could not turn up at school to pick them up. So they all enjoyed a leisurely rickshaw ride, where they chatted with each other and watched the world go by. They would all hang their water bottles down the rear grill and get into the rickshaw, after which the rickshaw puller would lock the door. From inside the rickshaw, they all would look out and wave their hands out of those square windows, bidding goodbye to the others. There were scores of rickshaws leaving from the school in the afternoon, and I would watch them all going away. All this while, I would keep holding my brother's hand, waiting for Dad to arrive on his bicycle to take us back home. Once, my classmate Saurav had asked me, "तुम हमारे साथ रिक्शा में क्यों नहीं आते हो? Why don't you come along with us in the rickshaw?" मेरे डैडी बोलते हैं रिक्शा वाले लेट कर देते हैं, हम साइकिल पे जल्दी घर पहुंच जाते हैं. My dad says rickshaws are usually late. He can reach home faster on his bicycle. That day, I asked Dad to pedal his bicycle faster and beat Saurav's rickshaw, so that I could prove to him that I was right. But deep inside, I was aware of the truth. The rickshaw puller charged 100 rupees per month per child. Our father could not have afforded a monthly rickshaw service for the two of us. Therefore, all I had asked for was a bicycle. But Mom, while serving me food that night, had advised me to postpone this demand. I recalled my mother's words. I should understand our family's financial condition and should not be demanding. I kept thinking about it over and over again. I don't remember when sleep took over me. And the next morning was one of the best mornings of my life. I was riding my bicycle to school. I had hung my water bottle across the bicycle bell on the right side of the handle. My school bag was safely tucked in the carrier behind me. I was the happiest kid in town and was not able to contain my smile. On my way to school, I overtook some of my friends on their dad's scooter and a few in those box-shaped rickshaws. Then I turned naughty. I showed off my favorite stunt of letting go of the handle and pedaling the bicycle faster. I was my own hero. But I wanted to be everyone else's hero as well. So I raced my bicycle into the school complex, leaving behind me a trail of wind and dust. I pushed up from my seat and pedaled the bicycle hard and fast, like no one had ever seen before. Without any hassle, I raced my bicycle all the way up the tall staircase. The crowd applauded. A lot of girls were cheering my name, Ravinder, Ravinder. Acknowledging them with a passing smile, I raised the front wheel of my bicycle onto the railing of the staircase. My next stunt was going to be to apply a quick brake and bring the bicycle to a skidding halt just at the precipice of the staircase. Exactly at that moment, I heard my mother call out, "Ud ja home, school jana hai. Wake up, you have to go to school." And it was all over. I was back in bed, in my daily vest and pajamas. On my way to school, while my father pedaled his bicycle, I asked him, "Ek gal puchan, Daddy?" "May I ask you something, Daddy?" "Puch," he answered, without paying me much attention. "Tusi menu cycle le doge ki? Will you get me a bicycle?" The unfulfilled desire for a bicycle had not dampened my competitive spirit at school. By the end of class 6, I was very close to being declared the winning rat, but Hindi turned out to be my weak link. Just 5 more marks, and I would have been able to make my parents proud. I had worked very hard this time, interestingly and quite contrary to my expectations. My parents were a lot happier this time. However, I was not happy. Blame it on the competitiveness that had, by then, so badly become a part of my mental structure. But I failed to be happy despite coming second in my entire class. I only realized this when my parents smiled. On looking at my mark sheet, I reminded them that I had not come first. Yet Mom patted me on the back, and so did Dad. That made me feel good about myself, even though I was not happy with my results. I was happy because my parents were finally happy. Inches close to your goal may have any one of these 2 impacts on your mind. 1. You grow complacent at the thought that you have almost reached your goal and will soon get there quite easily. Or else that you work harder to sustain your current position while making calculated progress towards the final goal. My parents were believers in the second impact. Unfortunately, I belonged to the first school of thought that I would easily make it to the top sooner or later. But that year, as per my mother's wishes, studying my curriculum for class 7 did not wait till the school reopened after the vacation. It began right in the middle of the summer vacation. While I stayed at home, I was made to go through the entire Bal Bharati, the Hindi literature textbook, and Vyakaran, the Hindi grammar textbook. I enjoyed reading the stories in Bal Bharati, but the ghost of Vyakaran just flew over my head, and because I believed in being complacent, I decided to take Hindi less seriously when the books were later being taught in class. Big mistake. By the time I realized how seriously it was going to affect my results, it was already too late. Within 7 months of getting a pat on my back from my parents, I once again became the reason behind their sadness and frustration. No, I didn't do badly in my final exams. The finals were still a few months away, but I did very badly in my half-yearly exams. From the second position, I slipped down to the 7th in a matter of 7 months. I remember how I delayed revealing my marks to my parents. I could not escape it, for the test papers had to be signed by my parents and returned to school. At one point, I even planned to sign them on my own, but stopped myself from doing so at the last moment. Those few days I lived in the terror of receiving my parents' scolding, and the very next week my fears came true. There was a parent teacher meeting in school, despite all my efforts to maneuver my mother away from the Hindi teacher. The inevitable happened. The rest of my week turned into a disaster zone. No more playing in the evening. Get up early in the morning and study. Mom instructed me strictly after I came back from school. It felt like a social boycott. My playtime was reduced from 2 hours to just 1. Everything I wished for in life was now connected with my results. You will only get your bicycle when you study hard and get good results. What people who didn't score top marks didn't ride bicycles? I was still the same boy who had done wonderfully in the last final exams and made his parents proud. And they were the same parents who had patted their son on his back. How come, then, that our relationship had suddenly come to this? After a point, I started losing all my self-confidence. I felt I was good for nothing. The fact that I was still better than at least 20 students in my class failed to hold up my spirits. My father, who only till a week before had believed that I would make him proud, started openly lamenting that his dream might never come true. And to add to my misery, the Chitrahar music program started airing this new song twice a week on Doordarshan, with lyrics that went, "Papa कहती है बड़ा नाम करेगा, बेटा हमारा ऐसा काम करेगा." Talk about wrong timing, man. Again, the race to do better brought about one more change for me. At the parent-teacher meeting, my class teacher and my mother mutually agreed to the Hindi teacher's proposal of shifting me to the first bench in the class. All three of them believed that it would have a positive effect on my concentration levels. I wondered, with that logic, should there be any benches in the classroom from the second row onwards at all?